So today we are going to look at the process which is known as apoptosis. Now, you know that normally inside our body, all the cells are trying to maintain the homeostasis process. But during some stress condition, during some stress condition, the cell will try to adapt it first according to the response uh, generated from that stress. But if it is failed to do that, so then some kind of cell injury will happen. And the cell injury, if it is mild or transient, so after some time it will be corrected, and that kind of injury is termed as reversible injury. As a result of what, the normal cell will again return back to its normal condition. That is, it can able to maintain the homeostasis condition. But when the severe cell injury happens, so then that kind of injury will be termed as irreversible injury. And due to the irreversible injury, the cell cannot go back to its normal state, other but it can go enter into the two different pathway. One is termed as necrosis, another is termed as apoptosis. So both of these phenomena, necrosis and apoptosis, are related to cell death. Now, what causes this kind of cell injury? So there are different lots of causes available. A few of examples like oxygen deprivation. So hypoxia is known as the deficiency of oxygen that can result in a reduction in aerobic oxidative respiration. So this is a common cause for cell injury, or which can turn the cell into its death. Similarly, there are certain physical agents like mechanical trauma or extreme temperature, sudden changes in atmospheric pressure, radiation, electric shock. These are also causing the cell injury. Besides those, some chemical agents, drugs, infectious agents, immunologic reactions, many things are there which can cause uh, mild to severe cell injury. Now, due to this cell injury, cell can enter into the death phase. Obviously, you should remember that cell death is a very basic mechanism, because these are also quite natural in some point, also developmental time points also, because if a cell is continuously growing and growing and growing, so you can understand that what will happen. That will form some tumor kind of thing. That means the tissue will be cancerous in nature. So to maintain the balance between the newly developed cell and the older cell, the death mechanism is very much common in certain cases. That means the cell know itself that when it must be die. So if the cell know that when it needs to die, so that pathway is known as programmed cell death, which is known as apoptosis. So it is a normal and pathological apoptosis process, where the DNA or proteins are damaged beyond repair. The cell kills itself, characterized by some different phenomena like nuclear dissolution, fragmentation of the cell without the complete loss of membrane integrity. We will see the different phases of apoptosis soon. Another pathway, when the damage to membrane is severe and lysosomal enzymes enter the cytoplasm and digest the cell and cellular contents leak out there. That process is termed as necrosis. This is also going to kill the cell, but this pathway is very much uh, accidental. Okay, it is not programmed. It is unprogrammed cell death. Okay, and that is known as necrosis. And another one is known as autophagy. You know, we have told about this process during the lysosomal activity. So cell sometimes uh, do auto create some autophagism, and thus the cell can be died of. Now, uh, quickly we can review that what are the features of necrosis. As I have just mentioned, that the morphologic appearance, if you look at the morphology of the necrosis uh, undergoing cells, so it is due to the result of denaturation of intracellular proteins and enzymatic digestion. Necrotic cells are unable to maintain their membrane integrity, and their contents often leak out, a process that may elicit inflammation in the surrounding tissue. So, inflammation in tissues are related to necrosis. Third point is that the enzymes that digest the necrotic cells are derived from the lysosomes of the dying cells themselves and from the lysosomes of leukocytes that are called in as part of the inflammatory reaction. Digestion of the cellular contents and the host response may take hours to develop. The earliest histologic evidence of necrosis may not become apparent until 4 to 12 hours. So it is a delayed process. It needs some time to generate uh, the symptoms of necrosis. On the other hand, if we look at the characteristics of apoptosis, it is known as programmed cell death, and it is especially during the fetal development or in response to some hormonal cycles, or in case of normal turnover in proliferating tissues, this kind of apoptosis happens. And the major difference, we will discuss the difference between these two processes soon. You will see that during the apoptosis, cell shrink, not swell. And inside the nuclei, the DNA are fragmented. Then the cells are fragmented into membrane bound bits. The bits are phagocytes by the macrophages then. So let's check these processes inside the diagram. So you can see that the right hand side, the normal cell, when it is going to die in apoptotic pathway, the condensation of the chromatin happens and the membrane blebs are found. Then the cellular fragmentation occurs and some apoptotic bodies are formed. And these apoptotic bodies are phagocytosed by some other uh, cells. On the other hand, in the necrotic pathway, the normal cells swell, uh, swell out, and here also you will find the membrane blade. However, this necrotic, if it is going on reversible injury due to reversible injury, so then it can recover soon. But if it is a progressive injury, severe injury, so then uh, the breakdown of the plasma membrane occurs, and organelles and nucleus and the content inside the cell will leak out, and ultimately the cell will die. So it is summarized in this slide that what are the different features or the difference uh, according to the size or uptake, the membrane configuration and the organelle condition in between necrosis and apoptosis process. If we look into the mechanism leading to the necrotic cells, so we will find that there are multiple causes. Multiple causes are responsible for uh, generation of this necrotic pathway. Like few of these are given in this diagram. Therefore, when the ATP production is less, then the mitochondrial damage or the calcium concentration increase, uh, ROS, reactive oxygen species concentration increase, or due to the membrane damage, a protein misfolding. All these factors are important for uh, necrosis. Now, if we are looking into the pathways of apoptosis, so again we will find that there are two pathways related to apoptosis. One is intrinsic pathway, another one is extrinsic pathway. Now, from the name itself, you can see that extrinsic pathway, that means the cellular activity is dependent by some external factor, and intrinsic means the signal is generated some features inside the cell. Okay, so we will look into the details of this pathway, and there you will find that some phenomena which are related to the mitochondrial activity. Okay, so mitochondria is playing an important role in this apoptosis mechanism, and we will see uh, the processes. Okay, so in this diagram, a detailed explanation of the two pathways are described. So in the left hand side, the intrinsic or mitochondrial pathway is described. How, so first in the left hand side, extreme left hand side, it is described that when the ligand molecule is uh, interacting with the receptor molecule, some anti-apoptotic factors can be generated, and thus the mitochondrial membrane uh, is being protected. That means no leakage is found inside the mitochondrial membrane. So there are multiple molecules, several different molecules are responsible to control these processes. We will see that details soon. Now, when the apoptosis occurs, so uh, so the ligand which is responsible for the survival, you see, this is a signal which is required for survival of a cell. Now, when that signal is not there, but some mm, DNA damage signal is coming, so a lot of molecules are generated inside that cell, and you can see that the membrane integrity is lost. So, some molecules are coming out from the mitochondria, and that actually leads to activation of another set of proteins which are known as caspases. That caspase pathway leads to the cell to enter apoptosis process. Okay, so even we are discussing in a very uh, brief way that how these pathways or how these signaling mechanism are going on, but actually this is a complex process, and we'll try to visualize this thing uh, in some dynamic way, that what are the different steps through which uh, the apoptosis happen due to the intrinsic uh, signaling mechanism. Okay. On the other hand, when some when some death signal is attached to some of the receptor molecules, so which is actually containing the death domain. So there are certain receptors which has uh, such kind of domain, and if the death signaling is present, so then this extrinsic uh, pathway is activated. Okay, so you can see in this diagram that due to this FAS ligand and FAS receptor interaction, this death domain is activated, and which is in turn activate another procaspase molecule that is known as procaspase 8. And these are the chain reaction kind of thing I told you during the signaling process. And this procaspase, earlier it was inactive inside the cell, but now it is become active, and it will generate some other pathway, or it will activate some other molecules uh, which are known as executioner caspases, and ultimately that cell will enter into the apoptosis process. So this kind of mechanism is known as extrinsic pathway, uh, or it is also known as death receptor initiated pathway. Death receptor initiated pathway. So this is a complex termed as apoptosome. Okay, so so this is a okay. So first of all, we will see uh, the dynamic features of this pathway, and then we'll come back to this apoptosome, because this is related to some molecules which are responsible for the mechanism apoptosis, and that molecule is known as apaf1. Okay, so let me start that uh, thing first, that video lecture first, and then we'll come back to. Okay, wait for some time.